Oh my gosh, I love this color on you and your necklace. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. I've been sitting here, I'm like, what is going on?
I was wondering, I said, it doesn't say it's on mute. It doesn't say, so I figured I'd just wait, and let
Oh,
technology work itself out.
exactly, right.
Yeah. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling really excited. I got a few things down the wire, and it's like at first they were all just ideas. Then I started working them. Then I conceptualized these things, and now it's as if everything is coming to life. It's like it's spring and the flowers are blossoming. I see it and it's just like, oh my God, I'm so excited, but hell is wearing me out.
I know that feeling. I know that
Mhm,
feeling.
mhm,
I know that feeling so well where it feels like my plate is so full and
mhm,
I'm so grateful for all of the things that are coming, into fruition, falling into
mhm.
place. And I think I need a nap. It's all those wrapped up into one. So
Okay, well, you get to take a nap.
I do.
And when you take a nap, just got to be a nap though. You can't go to sleep. See, that's
No,
what I
just
tell
a nap.
people.
Just set a
You
timer,
got to take a nap.
35, 40 minutes maximum little power nap, and I'm good to go.
Mhm,
Well, I'm
exactly.
so, so happy to be having a conversation with you today and just want to say thank you again so much for saying yes to being a part of this podcast. This is definitely a passion project for me and I just feel super grateful to be able to have conversations, especially with people like yourself. So I'm going to move us through this experience. I have a couple of questions for you. You can take up as much or as little space as you like with your responses. And I'm going to just start by letting you introduce yourself to the listeners, the viewers, just by telling us your name, where you're from, and what you stand for.
Woo, that is loaded because there is so many me's that we have to decide which me do you want. So what I'll do is try to put them all together.
That works for me.
Okay. Well, I'm Dr. Tanya Gilbert. I'm originally from Chicago, but I've been living in the greater Los Angeles area for the past 15 years. Um, I came out here to pursue my passion. Will continue with my passion, and everything we do takes on a different leg or a different life. And I needed. Sometimes folks don't understand. In order to continue what it is you're doing, you might not just be needing to do that thing. You might also need to make geographical moves. Geographical moves are also included in part of the success or the path of whatever it is that you may be doing. And sometimes folks try to, do things where they are and don't give up on it because it doesn't feel like it's working. And sometimes it's not what you're doing is not working, is where you're doing it. And so you might need to, move on a little bit, you know.
Mhm.
And even with that said, I'm in that same process again, 15 years later, that I have decided in my retirement, and we'll talk more about that, to move into an RV. So, and that's why I say, when you say who I am and what I do and what I stand for freedom, freedom of choice, freedom of being, freedom of thinking, freedom to just authentically be who you are, where you are right in this moment today, and let that be enough.
Mm, I love that. I love that so much. It's so interesting that you say that sometimes it's not what you're doing that's not working, it's where you're doing it. And
Mm-hmm,
just before we started, I was talking to my partner about a good friend of mine who is originally from Houston, Texas, and moved to the Los Angeles area about 15 years ago
mm-hmm,
and just never quite reached her level, never quite
Mhm,
got to where she really wanted to be career wise,
mhm,
relationship wise, health wise. And recently she had an opportunity to relocate and return back to Texas where she is originally from. And she's only been there for a visit for about 3 weeks. And we spoke yesterday and she said, "Girl, I think I might stay because I'm
mhm,
seeing growth in my business. My health is improving. I'm
mhm,
feeling better, and sometimes you just need to change the location." So
mhm.
I appreciate that reflection because it definitely just resonated with me. So you touched on something briefly, which is the subject of retirement. Can you tell us a little more about what you're retiring from and what you're experiencing now that you've started your retirement journey?
Well, again, my thought process is, I believe, open or broader than some folks. I'm willing to think outside of the flaps that's on the box, because I don't want to be caged into anything. And so, most people that I have encountered, when you say retire, they kind of have that thing. What are you retiring from? Um, some folks think retirement means stop,
Mm,
sit down, be still.
mhm,
But in the vein of where I come from, I have already retired several times. I stopped doing this and I started doing another project, because I live my passion. And so retirement for me means just simply making some choices in my life today that fits with where I am in my life today. It,
mm,
it doesn't mean, endless vacations, because I've endless vacationed already, so that wouldn't be anything different to do. It
yes.
doesn't mean, like getting and sitting on the porch with your rocking chair and start knitting or going fishing. None of that fits who I am.
Mhm,
But retirement for me means to settle in
mhm,
to where you are. It
mm,
doesn't mean to quit, to stop. It means to settle in, retire, rest where you are, and then evaluate what do you need to be at this resting place in your life.
I love that. Can I retire right now? It's
That's what I'm saying. I'm all about freedom of choice, freedom of doing, freedom of just being. See, we're all always trying to go somewhere and chase something. We are chasing what we allegedly want to be.
mm,
I'm the person to say, be where you are, be who you are, and that's just simply being. So retiring and retirement for me simply means just kind of get a little still,
mhm,
evaluate where you are,
mhm.
and what is it that you need right here, right now, in these moments of your life to continue to give you the best life.
Yeah,
And this is something that's not um, coming from the stem of what's socially projected and accepted as retirement.
right. Socially, we're programmed to think that retirement is the, last step before the final step, the
Right.
end of your life, or
Yes.
retirement is like, letting go of, the job that you've worked forever, the career that you've been in forever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's rare that people think of retirement as liberation, you know,
Mm-hmm.
as an opportunity to really explore and turn over a new leaf or start a new chapter. It's, what will I do with myself now that I'm retired? And I know
Right.
friends and I have friends, I have peers, and I have parents, and grandparents and godparents who are at the age, quote unquote, of retirement. And that seems to obviously be different for every person. And
Mm-hmm.
having conversations with them about, well, what are you going to do next when you retire? And they're like, I don't know what I'm going to do because
Mm-hmm.
I've never had this much freedom. I've
Mm-hmm.
never had this much time.
Mm-hmm.
So when you recognized what retirement could look like for you, what are some of the first things that you noticed were different once you reached a state of retirement versus where when you were in a different state of your life? What were some of the things that stood out?
Well, for me, again, this is not my first time to retire.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
And this is what I'm saying. For me, retirement just means take a moment
Mm.
of stillness,
Mm-hmm.
evaluate what it is, and where do you go from here? You can do that at any point in your life. And I encourage people to do that more often. But we are so bound by social constructs that says that we have to follow all of the rules and regulations until you get one foot in the grave and the other one, what they say on the banana peel. And
Yes.
then, and then you can say, oh, well, now we'll give you permission to retire because there's not really much else you can do. You know, your usefulness is not as needed or as useful.
Mm.
And I find folks that follow that tradition
Mhm.
to not experience retirement as liberation. They don't experience retirement as freedom. They experience retirement as loneliness, insignificance, use being less useful,
Mhm.
less needed, less desired, um, and pretty much kind of lost.
Yeah.
And so most people, when you talk to the average person
Mhm.
that look forward to retirement, the first thing they say, "Oh, I think I'm gonna maybe travel some, and oh, I'm gonna take up knitting and guitar playing, and oh, you know, because they have stepped out of what's been validated as okay, living your life, contributing to society, you know, and doing all of that.
Mhm.
And now I've done that, and I'm aged out of everything.
Right. Right.
So now what do I do? How can I do? So I work, part of the work I do,
Mhm.
I work with people through my coaching. You know, I am psychotherapist and I am a behavior health specialist. I'm an author, I'm a motivational speaker, I'm an ordained minister, and mostly I am a transformational life coach because I guide people into transforming their lives, to going to that place in life where they really desire to be. I help folks figure out what is it that they really desire, because most people don't even know what they want because they're so used to being told what to do.
That's right.
And so when they get to retirement, that's why they don't know what to do. They're lost because nobody now have a plan for them, and they have failed to plan for themselves.
Mm. That's so key that people have failed to plan for themselves so that the idea of not doing what they've been doing is fearful, it's uncertain, it's
Mhm,
uncomfortable, and
mhm,
trying to like fill their day. Well, I've been used to getting up and going to this job for the last 30, 40 years, and
mhm.
or I've been used to going to this job for the last 5 years and it's time for me to
Right.
retire from that particular career. What am I
Mhm,
going to do with myself? How am I going to keep myself occupied? How am I
mhm,
going to, generate income? What will my community
mhm,
look like? And so I think that sometimes if I think of people like myself, or I even think of people that have been working even longer than I have that are ready
mhm,
for a retirement experience, the
mhm,
idea of what comes next is
mhm,
is where they stop. That's where the planning stops. So I don't know, like you
mhm,
said, I'm going to pick up guitar or I'm going
mhm,
to learn how to bake or something. But what I think is
mhm,
really cool, especially about someone like yourself, is that you have so many different career experiences that you've had so far that
mhm,
when you reach this current season of retirement, you are exploring something that I find super interesting, which is a nomadic lifestyle that
mhm,
allows you a new type of liberation and a new type of freedom. Can you tell
Exactly.
me a little more about that?
Okay, let me just give you another thing about that
Okay.
retirement, planning for
Yes.
retirement,
Yes.
because in this nomadic lifestyle that I've taken up, I hang out with a lot of retirees, right?
Okay.
And there is a couple sets of folks that I hang out with in the nomadic lifestyle. I
Okay.
hang out with the set that I'm going to speak of right the second is the retirees.
Mhm.
They did plan their retirement. They planned really well.
Mm.
They did the 401ks. They did everything to get themselves financially suited to retire.
Yes.
And as they were doing that, a lot of them sold their homes and went and did exactly what I did, purchased an RV. And they got these fabulous, big, beautiful things, right?
Mhm.
However, what I find that they have done, they have tried to take that lifestyle that they lived in all of these years while they worked and put it into this thing over here that they're calling retirement and they're calling freedom.
Mm.
It was very interesting. One day recent, my grandson hangs out with me in the desert sometimes too. He loved hanging out with his grandma. And he was like, Grandma, I just noticed something because we are hanging out in a retirement community resort.
Mhm.
And I said, what? He said, all of these people, it's not even 12 o'clock, and they are already two shades to the wind.
Mm.
He said they are red, beat faced, they're this, they're that. He said they are just buzzed. He said, I know this is something that they do every day. You know, they get up and then they ride around on their golf carts and
Mhm.
they have these cups. And what's in those cups that says juice is not juice? They're getting juiced.
They're getting juiced. Yeah, exactly.
You know? And so I took attention to that.
Mhm.
And I wanted to understand because that's not who I am. I got all kind of projects that I'm doing. And
Yeah.
so then I was like, what's going on? Why are they? He's right, you know. Well,
Mhm.
what happened? They're trying to imitate life. They're trying to
Mm.
take that life that they had and put it out here. And it wasn't because of finances that they left that place where and brought them to the road. They are in search of something that they couldn't find in that house, but they don't know how to let go
Mm.
of that life that they had to give themselves freedom. So although they might not have that house, they have an expensive RV, they have boats, they have all kind of beautiful toys, right? So
Mhm.
they're still tied to things and not themselves. So they don't know what to do with themselves because now they're out here, they finding themselves still living the same life that they were living, but now it's on wheels.
Now it's on wheels. They just took their house and made it mobile. They took their lifestyle,
Exactly.
made it mobile, and then apparently added a couple, gallons of alcohol to that maybe, or maybe that's what was happening
Right. So
before. I
instead
don't
of
know.
working,
You know?
instead of
Yeah.
working, doing something, they're drinking. Even the ones I engaged to sitting, I like to sit on the Colorado River. They're
Mhm.
sitting there in the sun, reading, and boom, they got their cocktail sitting right next to them, 11 a.m.
Oh, so
And
every hour is cocktail hour, I guess.
yes, yes, yes. By 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, they are fully loaded. And I
Wow.
am just calming my day down because I'm making curtains, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. I found all kind of things,
Yeah.
coloring rocks. I found all kind of things that I haven't had the opportunity to allow myself to explore.
Mhm.
I have reconnected pretty much with my inner child in the sense of when we are children,
Mhm.
um, we're curious and we are creative
Yes.
and we are not afraid.
Right.
As adults, we become afraid and severely cautious and engage ourselves in that. So, what I have done is kind of reconnect with my curiosity. I have reconnected with my creativity
Yeah.
and the caution that I learned through living life serves just as a measurement for safety, because you still have to be aware of your surroundings and the people that's in it. You know, you can't be running off like, you know, you're in tulip land somewhere.
Right,
So,
right. We still on Earth, so yeah.
when I was a kid, when I was young, I used to make clothes and jewelry, and I could sit and look at something and draw it just the way it is. And as I start experiencing life, those things dwindled away. You know, we lose all of that as we start adulting. We lose it.
Right.
And so I decided in my retirement, I'm re-adulting. I'm adulting in a different way. I'm still an adult and I'm still responsible, but I want to have fun. I want, you know, to understand what really brings me joy, what brings me peace, what brings me comfort, you know, and those are the things that make me free, you know, and they're not like things, they're not like money. They're, you know, I looked at something in the desert the other day and I was like in complete awe. Oh my God, look at this thing. I was following donkeys around. I've never seen a wild burros. I have never seen a wild one. I've seen one in the zoo, but I'm sitting in my RV and here go the whole group of them walk right past. And then I get up in the morning and they was evidence that they spent a significant amount of time in my yard.
They left a parting gift. So yes, I understand.
I'm like, oh my God, this is so wow, you know, to see mountain goats and they're not like in the zoo. So it's almost like how you're a kid, you go to the zoo and you see this, then you're like, wow. But as an adult, now I see this. I'm like, man, I didn't know that these things, you know, I knew deer ran up and down the street, but it never dawned on me in my adulting.
Right. Well, because you're adulting, like you said, I think
Mhm,
as we transition from children into adolescence, into adulthood, and then more adulthood, that we lose that courage and that curiosity and
we
that
do.
creativity that we had as children. And then
Hmm.
there's like a shift that happens where for some it's we retire from adulting in some form or fashion, or we shift
Hmm.
into a different type of adulting where the thing that we're really looking for is that courage and that curiosity
Hmm.
and that creativity that we had as children. And so I think that when I think of the liberation that can happen from retirement is to really leave behind, all that stuff that was really submerging our creativity and like kind of
Hmm.
squashing it down, and that curiosity is really to go back and really find it. And so when I think of, your experience purchasing an RV and then starting to kind of travel around the country and the types of people that you're finding on the road, we talked a couple of weeks ago, that movie, what is it called? Nomadland, I think had
Yes.
recently come
Hmm.
out.
Hmm.
And it's getting
Hmm.
all this, critical acclaim. And so my partner and I watched it. And the first thing she says is, "Where's the Black people on the road? Are there any Black people on the road?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to talk to Dr. Tanya in a couple of weeks, so I'm going to ask her that question." So, since you've been in your RV and you've been on the roads, of America, so to speak, tell me a little bit more about the communities that you're finding while you're out
Well,
there.
let me just say that this.
Okay.
This is so funny to me because I've said this my whole life. We, Black folks, are everywhere.
Mm,
You cannot stop us
yeah.
from being anywhere. Our presence in the places that we are just somewhat different
Okay.
than some of the other folks. There is an entire community of Black nomads.
Mm,
There's an entire community of Black van lifers. I mean, I've ran into a few, I've met a few. It's just like with anything else, folks act like we just showed up, and I tell people all the time, the first surfers were not of the Caucasian,
persuasion. Mm-hmm.
yeah, they actually were Black.
Mm,
The beaches that we out here in California, up on Seal Beach,
Mm-hmm.
that was Black. It wasn't what you see. And they taught some of the other folks how to surf, you know. You got to look at the folks, look over in Hawaii, look at that. All of these, we have always been in places.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't seem significant enough
Mm.
that we were there. And then when we start showing up more often, then we become this anomaly. Oh, look, there go a Black RVer, So
Right.
I have some personal chuckles, as I, go and travel.
Mm-hmm.
There, people don't know there is 10 Black owned and operated RV resorts in the United States.
Wow.
Who would have ever thought it, right?
It's 10 more than I thought.
Okay, but
I didn't
it's
know
10
there
of them,
were
and
10.
they are fabulous. They are fabulous. And I plan on having an opportunity to travel to all 10 of them.
Okay.
It's just that I have to, when you're RVer, you learn to be a weather chaser.
Yes.
And most of them are mostly in the southern area.
Mm-hmm.
And the weather there is not conducive to, driving the RV at certain times of year.
Yep.
And so you
Yeah.
have to kind of plan it. So I won't get to those places this year, but I will be in those places next year. But there's a lot of people that don't know that. But there is Black RV community.
Mm-hmm.
Is not as many of us out RVing, full-time RVing,
Mm-hmm.
part-time RVing, van lifing, camping. How many Black folks really get into camping, just simple tent camping, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And a lot of it is because we have embraced as a community
Mm-hmm.
what is socially projected upon us to say that we are successful. And if we are living in RV, somehow something went wrong in our lives,
Mm.
because now you're equated as being less than a homeless or, or whatever. And so with that said, I talk about this retirement community
Mm-hmm.
of dwellers, and most of them are not of the community of color persuasion.
Mm.
And they're still trying to hold on
Yeah.
and live this other life.
Yeah.
But then there's another community of nomads.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I really liked that movie, but the movie was very one-dimensional. Um, you've seen a couple of cameo appearances of Black folks,
Mm-hmm.
and then most of the folks that was in there, it was the story about lost hardship, but also family and connection.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I say family and connection, the nomadic community is what community really is.
Okay.
They help each other. And it is just so amazing. It reminds me of before colonization happened,
Mm-hmm.
how did messages get across, the country, and
Right.
how did that word travel so quickly, and
Mm-hmm.
how did folks know where to meet other folks before we got all of this technology?
Right.
And so the nomadic life is, to me, almost like going into time, going into history, and experiencing people that are real, true folks. Now, what happens, there are some people that came out there as a result of some type of hardship
Right.
and landed living in their cars or their RVs or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, some people that decided whatever happened in life that they just want to run off the grid,
Mm-hmm.
and because they couldn't tolerate it anymore. But
Right.
then you have a whole nother group of people that are very similar to myself. I'm opting for freedom. I'm like, what does freedom mean? Freedom does not necessarily mean living off the grid.
Right.
It does not necessarily mean trying not to pay a utility bill. It doesn't necessarily mean that. So that's what I'm traveling doing. I'm talking to people, and trying to get connected with more stories of what is freedom? What does freedom mean to you? You know, you don't have to be a nomad to desire freedom. And
Right.
how can you bring freedom into your life
Mm.
without doing that? So what does freedom mean to you?
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm doing. And then the other side of what I do,
Mhm.
there's that group that was similar to that movie that's out there. And there's some other groups that have idealized, living a nomadic life because it's very romanticized on social media.
Oh, it can be,
Yeah,
definitely,
it's
because you
not
have
what it looks like.
yeah,
It is, yeah,
yeah,
it's
'cause like you said, you have those who are nomads, who are in a nomadic
mhm,
lifestyle
mhm,
that are there by choice and desire, and then
mhm,
there's those who are there as a result of hardship and
mhm,
inconvenience, you know, so to speak.
mhm,
So I think that like the culture of that probably varies, but continue,
mhm.
you were saying.
But both of them still have one thing in common.
Okay.
You take you wherever you go.
Mhm.
You take you wherever you go.
That's
And
right.
so when they decide they want to go and become nomads for whatever reason, the ones that even say they are choosing this life,
Mhm.
when you walk away from the city and all of this stimulation,
Yeah,
there's nothing out there but you
that's right.
and the desert or the trees or the water or wherever you may be.
Yeah, that's right.
And so there is nothing to bounce anything off of except for yourself.
Mm.
So then some folks out there find themselves feeling lonelier, feeling sad, depressed, anxiety, things come up, issues come up for them that they haven't encountered in years because there were so many other distractions that it kind of kept those things buried in their lives.
Mhm.
So you have folks out there just recently. There was a couple, at least this one woman, it was public, everybody know her, so I think it's okay to say her name,
Mhm.
but her name was Lee. She had a show on YouTube,
Oh, yeah.
but she committed suicide.
Mhm.
But to see her, you would think her life was perfect because she's traveled the world, she's a nomad, she's this, she's that, and it seemed like everything is going well. But she still could not find herself. She still could not connect to herself. And being out there as a nomad, it was just too much. It was too broad. It wasn't enough for her to hold on to. So part of what I do as being a nomad uh, life coach, I guess.
We
I
got a nomadic transformational life coach. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
I guess I haven't figured out how quite to wrap it around, how quite to wrap it up yet.
yeah.
But part of what I do is help those folks that have decided for whatever reason, by decision or because circumstances or whatever, and they're out there with themselves to help them really find themselves. So I'm doing coaching with that nomadic community.
I love that. I love that because, you know, I have always had this desire to just move, to be in different places, to explore different
Mm-hmm,
places, you know, from birth till, you know, the age of what, 12 or 13 years old. I moved like 6 or 7 times, you know,
mm-hmm,
was born in Inglewood, lived in Portland, back to Inglewood, moved to Utah, back to Inglewood, then to the desert, and then
mm-hmm,
graduated from high school and went off and lived, you know, started living my adult life.
mm-hmm,
And I've always just had this desire to explore. And so in 2018, as a result of financial hardship, I started moving around and
mm-hmm,
started entitling myself as a nomad because
mm-hmm,
everything I had was in the trunk of my car. All of my other worldly possessions were in a storage space in Palm
mm-hmm,
Beach, and I just kind of was moving, you know. And even
mm-hmm,
though at the time I was spending some time couch surfing, sometimes sleeping in
mm-hmm,
my car, sometimes, you know, get an Airbnb here and there, house sitting for people, just being everywhere. The irony of that was it wasn't something that I planned for. However,
mm-hmm,
I found myself really just embracing it. Like, this is
Mhm,
it is
mhm,
what it is. The only thing that made me feel like there was something lacking was I have a son and I wasn't providing that structural home that he had gotten
mhm,
used to. However, knowing that he was okay and he was well taken care of and everything was good with him, there were times when I would just get in my car and just drive. You know,
mhm,
I would
mhm,
drive up the coast, down the coast, drive east, out towards the desert. And there was one time that I was driving and I drove all the way out to Joshua Tree. And
mhm,
I just kind of parked my car and just kind of got out and looked around and said, okay,
mhm,
like you said, wherever you go, you take yourself with you. Wherever you go, there
mhm,
you are. And it was in those quiet moments, those moments of solitude, that this
mhm.
podcast was born, that
Okay.
book was born, that,
Mhm,
changes in my business started to happen, changes that
mhm,
I needed to make to prepare myself for the ideal partnership started to happen. Like,
mhm.
so many things, so much transformation took
Yes.
when I stepped away from all the other distractions. So
Mhm.
I tell people, like, you should just be nomad for at least a year. Just try it out. Just see how it feels, because it's life changing,
It
and
is. And in my travels that I've had so far, I have run into entire families and Black families
yeah.
with three, four, five children, and they're living nomadic lives. They're living in their RVs, and these are the most grounded and well-rounded children that
Mhm.
I know, because they are being exposed to all kind of cultures, and they are experiencing history live.
Yeah.
They're going exploring the caves in Utah and the monuments in South Dakota, and not just looking at a picture in a book. They are literally living this, and with the technology, they're being homeschooled, and so they're being socialized in a very well-rounded, grounded, appropriate way. So,
Mhm.
so when we talk about structure and
Mhm.
things like that. All of those things are what you make them. They're
Right.
what you create. You know, who's to say that, they eat 3 meals a day, they have a bedtime, they everything you would do in the brick and mortar, they're doing that same exact thing on wheels. So they're not lack in any structure at all. They are just not living the traditional brick and mortar. And
Mhm.
so this is what I'm saying. I encourage folks to touch into their real authentic selves.
Mhm.
If your authentic self is what you have been accustomed to through our exposure
Mhm.
of how we've been culturally stimulated, with we're supposed to have this, you're supposed to have this, you gotta have this amount of money, you gotta have that, you should eat these kind of foods. And
Right.
we've been culturally stimulated in that place. And that's how you get stuck in those jobs for years. And then you get upon this thing that's called retirement and you're lost,
Mhm.
because all of our social constructs did not give you any further instructions other than to save for your retirement. And no one wrote the book on what retirement really is. What does retirement really look like? How do you create retirement? Is retirement the end of life thing? Why does retirement have to be the next, like you say, the next stage to the end of your life?
Right. Right.
you know
Right.
and you can retire at 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 any age you can take a pause
That's right.
and decide, where do I go from here? That's all retirement is taking a pause and say, where do I go from here?
Mm.
That's it.
That's real.
That's it.
I gotta let that breathe. That's so real, because rewriting the narrative that tells us that retirement is something that is only allowed at a certain age, that is only acceptable after a certain number of years in a career, that is only, permissible if you've accomplished XYZ,
Right.
instead of recognizing that retirement is something that very well may happen several times throughout your life. It's not just a one time thing, or it doesn't have to just look one way. So I love that. I would like to switch gears a little bit with you. And this is
Okay.
the portion of my podcast where I like to give you an opportunity to tell us a little more about you. And I'm going to provide you with a couple sentence prompts, and then you can complete the sentence, taking up as much or as little space as you like. So the first is, I am happiest when.
I am happiest when I'm just doing something that I've been motivated to do just because. Not because it was requested, not because it is required, but just because I feel like it.
Hmm. How about, I know I've made an impact when.
I know I have made an impact when I engage with anyone, because my goal in life with anyone, even if I just looked at them and they looked at me, we didn't even have to speak, but it's something that happened with that exchange
Mhm.
that created some type of meaning, for that person. My goal is to leave everything better than I found it, and is not about what I have done for that person, but it's more of how did I make them feel.
Mm, I love that. I want to be known for my.
I want to be, this is really interesting,
Okay.
because part of what I do as a coach, and folks want to know what their passions are, what this is, and how to change their lives. I have a intervention that I do with them that's very similar to that question. I want to be known by, and
Okay.
it's like I invite them to write their obituary. Sounds gross, but
No,
you
that's
start.
actually not gross at all.
I have people to start from where you want to be or where you end, and then live that thing.
Mhm.
So I want to be known for just being truly authentically who I am. Every time you have engaged with me, I want people to be able to say, Tanya was wild and crazy and this and that, but one thing, she was truly genuine and authentic person. No matter whatever it is she did, said, it was always real.
Hmm. I love that. I love that. So before we wind down, I like to play a little game called the time machine.
Mhm.
So you're going to get comfortable in your seat, and if you'd like, you can close your eyes or lower your gaze, and you're going to imagine yourself getting into a time machine that looks however you want, and we're going to travel all the way back until you were 16. And as you step out of the time machine and you see your 16-year-old self standing before you, what is the first thing that you say?
Okay, 16-year-old self. My 16-year-old self, we used to call her Twinkie. It's funny. Now it's funny. But it was about being as bright and shiny as a star. Then I was very different from other folks then. I used to, as dark as I am, I used to draw freckles on my face. And so, what I would say to my 16-year-old self, thank you so much. I just want to thank you, and just let you know how much I appreciate the preparation that you gave me to be able to get here where I sit today. Without you, I would not be who I am right here, right now, in this moment. So I would love to thank my 16-year-old self because she was furious. She was a leader and she was genuine and she was authentic and she had the courage to take on anything and just live no matter what anyone else said about it. She still did her thing, and that's who I am today. So I say thank you, 16 Twinkie.
I love that. Okay, we're going to get back in our time machine and come all the way back to the present. And when you're ready, please open your eyes. Oh, I love that. So, the last thing I like to offer on every podcast is a brief little reading from this oracle deck that I have. It's called the Oracle of E, and E is for everything. And it's super lighthearted. And the messages are always really fun. And so, it's a deck of 52 cards. So, I'm
Okay,
just going to ask you to pick a number between 1 and 52.
6.
6. Okay. And I'm also going to pull the 10 card because today is the 10th. So great. Okay. So the message for number 6 says from scratch. From scratch. And so there's a little guidebook. I'm going to read the extended message from scratch. Oh, this is perfect. They always are. Congratulations. You've got all the ingredients for every one of your dreams to come true. Everything is now within your reach. What are you waiting for? It's not going to bake itself. Quit looking and start cooking.
All right, I like that. You have to send me the information to get that deck.
I surely will. I'll email it to you today. And
Okay.
the second card is the number 10 and the message is over your shoulder. I love this one. This is one of my favorites. Over your shoulder. The message is those recurring patterns in your life, throw them overboard. Whoever said those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it was full of, you only repeat patterns when you continue to stare at them. You get hypnotized and then act them out. Take one last look back, if you must, and then say sayonara for good.
That's great. Though that's amazing.
Thank you. I'm so glad. Well,
Mhm.
my dear, you are one of my favorite people in the world that I have had the privilege of meeting so far. I enjoy every opportunity that I have to just share space with you and to be in conversation with you. And I feel like I learn something new every time that we talk. I just want to affirm you and commend you for the work that you're doing and the work that you continue to do, the lives that you touch, the people that you inspire, and the transformation that you help facilitate in the lives of others is just amazing, amazing, amazing work. And I just want to say thank you so much.
You are quite welcome. And the same thing, ditto for you, because you are a person that I have met that you never fail to show up. And not only do you show up, you show out. See, that's the thing. People can come, but they don't do nothing. You show up and you show out. And that's so important. And don't you ever let anyone take any of that away from you. You just own that. Just keep doing it.
I
When
will.
I
I
see
will.
you do, no matter what you're doing, I say, go look at that girl. And it's always so exciting and it always warms my heart, to see and know that I have connected with people like yourself, to know that you're out there. Folks say to me all the time, they say, Dr. Tanya, how do you do it? You just, you're always busy, so many people. I said, and everybody I know, I pretty much love equally, and we're family.
Yeah.
Family is not about a bloodline, it's about a spiritual kinship and connection. And we've had that,
Yes.
you and I,
Yes.
from the very, very beginning. I would never forget that from the very beginning.
Yes.
And also, I have written 3 more books.
Oh, you better write 3 more books. Okay.
Well, I'm re-releasing one book,
Okay.
you know, my first book, because I wrote it and released it at a time that there was so much going on that I didn't give it its just. So I'm re-releasing that in May,
Okay.
and it's called Life Coaching Made Simple. Don't ask a friend, hire a life coach. And folks can go to my Instagram and my YouTube and my Facebook, and I'm be running some specials and give some giveaways for that. And then after that, I wrote 3 reflection journals, and it's reflections on living. It's called the Exchange,
Okay.
and each journal is geared towards how we live, our perceptions, our expectations, and our courage to live. So those are coming soon. And the last thing,
Okay. Okay. Bring on the announcements. I love it.
starting this Wednesday, my nomad life is coming to life on YouTube. Is
Okay.
called Off with Dr. Tanya, Opting for Freedom. And it's going to be a combination of conversations with myself, people like you, people I just run into, also just me talking head, talking about whatever.
Uh-huh.
Some things will be live, some things will be pre-recorded, but you will be able to find it every Wednesday starting this coming Wednesday. I think it's the 14th.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. And I'm actually going to be interviewed by the guy that's up for the Academy Award for Nomadland.
What? That's amazing. Oh my goodness. My heart is so full. I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Yes.
so because he's doing some good things out there,
Well, good. I'm so
and
glad.
I want to support and partner with him doing some of those good things. So
Yes.
I've already have some nomad clients. I've already set up a scholarship that folks donate to.
Mhm.
So the folks that's living nomadic lives can have the coaching, because some of them don't have money,
Right.
but we'll talk more about it. But I'm so excited.
I'm so excited. That is amazing. That is amazing.
Mhm.
That is amazing. Well, I
Yes.
am, yeah, I'm gonna go enjoy the rest of my day today, and I encourage you to do the same, and I know you will. And so
Okay.
Wednesday, April 14th on YouTube is where we can find you on.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha. And then all the other places, I'll make sure I include that in the podcast.
Yes.
So, all right, Dr. Tanya, I appreciate you so much.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Okay,
Thank you
talk
so much.
to you. You're so
Bye
welcome.
bye.
Okay, bye.